right, on Kihon Waza, and we're just talking about Kihon Waza. It's like a shape, and you want to replicate the shape. From there, you work with your teacher to understand the shape, use the shape, etc. So let's just start with the shape. Okay. First thing is going to be hand shape. The hand is going to have a cup aspect to your palm, but that is not made by squeezing your bones in like this. What you don't want on the other extreme, however, is the bones of the hand extending like this. This is not correct, okay? You have this cup shape to it, but not made by, you'll see some people doing this stuff, okay? Or you'll see some people in extension doing that other mistake, okay? Again, this is the Kihon Waza shape. And as Kihon Waza is to be transcended, ultimately the shape is not important, but whenever you're training in Kihon Waza, you should do the shape. And if you don't have the shape yet, you should learn the shape. So there's a cup aspect to the palm. Then your fingers are long, but not tense. If you tense your fingers, you're gonna tend to make that first mistake. You'll sympathetically tense the bones in your hand, okay? So my fingers are long, and I'll give little points as we go along here. In the beginning, you want to have that cup in your palm in alignment with your forearm bones to your elbow. So you don't want it here, this way. And then pay attention to this middle finger. This finger here, and I would actually say a point here between the middle and the ring are connected to that palm. Okay? Again, don't flex your fingers, but keep them long. And as you get this hand shape, keep your forearm relaxed. It's not made by a tension in your arms. Your forearm is very relaxed, okay? Shape of the hand. The next shape is the arm. And I'll give you a reference point here. There's only two arm movements. They're really one movement. So it's playing with that duality in place of a unity. Okay, you're working through yin and yang back to the Tao. So there's two, but ultimately there's one. Okay. One we'll call the inward spiral, and the other one is the outward spiral. Okay. So I take that hand shape, and my hand goes this way, and of course it can do the reverse. This is, we'll call the inward spiral. The outward spiral is just an extension of its reverse, and then an inversion of it. In, out. I'll give you reference points. It's your elbow. It is not made by your shoulder, ball and socket joint working, nor made by your hinging elbow. Both of those are incorrect. And you'll tend to do those in the beginner as you're muscling. You'll use your ball and socket joint. And it'll be indicative of that will be your elbow will come outside of your shoulder line. So we'll call your shoulder line your outer rim. Your elbow will come outside of your outer rim. Martially, you'll find that to be very ineffective. It'll open you up to a lot of things and you'll lose a lot of mechanical advantage. You'll probably injure your shoulders over the decades of training. If you're seeking leverage, which you don't want to seek in the art, you'll use the elbow hinge a lot. You'll see people use that elbow hinge a lot. Okay? So, as a marker, we'll say I got a line at my shoulder, a line halfway at my chest, a middle line, another line halfway to my chest, and then another shoulder line. So my elbow starts on that shoulder line, and when I do the inward spiral, it will come all the way to that middle line. And that is where you're going to see that it'll have its yin and yang phases. So as it's moving from the shoulder, it's in its yang phase. As the elbow hits my mid-pec here, it's starting to go in its yin phase, and at the completion of the center line, it is done. It can't go anymore. So the same thing, inward, boom, making these incorrect, making these incorrect. A way of thinking of it is it's really your elbow you want to be mindful of, not your hand. The hand does what it does. The forearm is relaxed as it is, but it is the elbow that's actually tracing that pattern. For the outward elbow or the outward spiral, it's going to cross over, okay? So down, it'll reach that midpoint and then come back to the shoulder line, okay? Not way out here, back to the shoulder line. A pattern you can keep in mind is that they make hearts. They make a heart. So if you look at our crest, in the back of the crest, you have a universal pattern, and in the middle of the universal pattern is a heart shape. So you can kind of use that as long as you remember that it's not the hand tracing it, it's the elbow tracing it. The elbow is tracing it. So take the hand shape and the arm shape, and in Kihon Waza, there's never going to be one side of your body that is making the shapes and the other one's not, okay? So for example, I wouldn't have this arm ever hanging or this arm hanging, so this one's in the shape and this arm's doing nothing. It's very relaxed, comes around, and then does this. No. So I keep the shapes at all times. Keep the shapes at all times. So body's in the shape. I'd move around in Juji-Nage. Boom, they're still in the shape, and they're gonna make the two shapes together, as opposed to something here, dead over here. Boom. They're making the shapes together. One. You'll see the inward spiral and the outward spiral on this hand. Boom. Again. Boom. 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 Towards the camera. Starting to go. So this hand is starting outward. This hand is technically starting inward, and it's because it's yin-yang, but then they switch. So inward goes to outward, outward goes to inward. So here, this way, boom, and then from the back, it's doing that, boom, boom, boom. Again from the back, boom, Boom. All right, so a good drill on working on those hand shapes and arm patterns is the following. So I call this a micro drill. So your Kihon Waza are drills, and we're gonna take the hand shape and the arm shapes and the sense that both sides are working and make a micro drill just out of those things, okay? So you have katate, and you do the inward spiral and the outward spiral. Inward spiral, no. Inward spiral. And once I can get the shape, I want to check for the shape. So my hands stay the same, even though I'm not using this hand. Keep that side of my body active. You kind of do an inward spiral here on the strike as you do the outward. So arms are moving. Moving. The next thing I can do is pay attention to my elbow on that grid that I put on my torso. So I don't want it to go out. Push, please. I don't want it to go out. Stays on that shoulder line. Comes all the way over. The elbow comes all the way over. Boom. Goes all the way over, all the way over. At first, you're going to flex everything. That is fine. Just remember that as you progress, you should not be using any effort to accomplish the same means. Okay? So at first, you're going to think it's biomechanical and skeletal alignment, which is fine, but always task yourself with, no, it's not, okay? As we're here in this thing, again, the egoic mind sees skeletal alignment, do you see? And they're like, well, yeah, she can't push you, or you're making her energy come up, so she can't get a line on you. If she really tried, she'd push you over, but no, the energy goes back into her, okay? And you could do whatever. She could stand up, and she could push. So here you can't say I'm underneath it, okay? And it doesn't matter. That's not what's happening, okay? And likewise, as I do the pattern, let me just make the shape. Okay, so for example, you could change where she's at. Everyone might understand that she can't push so well that way biomechanically, but if she stands up and she's pushing on the elbow again, nothing happens, but at the same time, she can't push on the hand either. She can't push on the hand that way either. You see, normally you would think that would collapse, or you would think the elbow would push down or something, or as she comes from this angle on the elbow, she can't push the elbow that way either, okay? And you can see that I'm still relaxed. But at the beginning, it's fine. Over tense, what I would say, and but continually trust and gain faith in taking tension while keeping the shapes. That's your goal. get the shape, and then keep the shape as you take away more and more mechanical thinking and more muscle tension. So it looks like these shapes, you're going to need more shapes to do your Aikido. So you're like, where's my up and down robot arms? Yeah, it's not in the art. It's not in the Kihon. Don't do it in the Kihon. Okay. Where's my inward outward parry wax on wax off? It's not in the art. Okay. So with these two spirals, with this heart-shaped spiral, in combination with your Ashi Sabaki and your Tai Sabaki, you generate whatever you wanted to do with the elbow bend or whatever you wanted to do with the robot arms or the wax on, wax off. Okay? So keep that in mind, that I can only do these shapes, I can only do these two spirals, and then I have to make up whatever I want with how I move my body and how I move my feet. Okay? All right. Kihon Waza, shape. There is a shape to the Waza, and it too is going to be spiral in nature. And when we say spiral, you don't want to think two-dimensional. Nothing is two-dimensional in Kihon Waza. So it's not a XY grid, but it's also not a two-dimensional spiral. Okay, so for example, the technique is here. It's not a matter of me getting out of the way. We're now looking at 6 o'clock and then accelerating them to 6 o'clock, and they roll. This is not the shape of the technique. You will not have the angle of cancellations that you want, and you're also not repeating the shape which is necessary for deeper understandings of the art. So the art is spiral in nature. And something to look for then is one, an angle cancellation. So let's define that. Let's say she just has a fighting stance, okay? And an angle cancellation is a diagonal line that is traversing the three planes of height, width, and depth, okay? So, for example, if I go this way straight across, it's an angle cancellation, but not as she comes around 360 with the elbow or what have you. Also, straight down doesn't stop her from punching me in the face, okay? Instead, it's going to go diagonally in and down. And this will create mechanical checks, just simply put here, on all weapons in the three zones of height, width, and depth. So if she tries to kick, or she tries to punch, and that in effect will create a field of operation. We'll call it a zone of sanctuary, okay? In the technique Jujinage, that's what we called it. I don't care what you call it. Okay? In Jujinage, your hand is going to do, remember this hand is ultimately going to do the outward spiral this way. So that means it has to begin first inward. And you can see that you're creating a place that you can be and operate from in that check. Okay? So I get my body going. They're starting the movements. Boom. And I move into that spot. But I don't now accelerate her that way. This whole thing is going to come around her whole body, and she'll go that way. So just looking at the shape of the technique again, get your angle cancellation, move into your zone of sanctuary, and then she's going to go that way. Much different from here. And that does not matter whether you're doing Irimi Tenkan, such as I just did, so Irimi Tenkan, or whether you're doing Ushiro Tenkan. So I'm going this way. I still don't want to throw her just straight. So you'll see Ushiro Tenkan, there's that spot. She goes around. Boom. So look for those two things, or those three things. An angle of cancellation, which is a diagonal cutting through height, width, and depth. The established zone of sanctuary, that's where you move, that's your axis of rotation. That gives you the final thing to look for, which is we're actually making a big spiral, okay? We're not using an XY grid. All right, the shape of my footwork in Kihon. So we'll do the Ushiro Tenkan one that you did. So just get back here. Okay. So all the other stuff: hand shape, symmetry, spiraling shape, angle cancellation, zone of sanctuary. Move into it. You can if you want. I think you were doing the one where you stepped, so you brought her around. Now you're in it. There's the zone of sanctuary, and then you entered, okay? So, footwork, foot shape, okay? We'll scoot back to that. So, one, there's the zone of sanctuary. This is where I do my rotation, okay? I'm not gonna throw her that way. She's gonna go around me, okay? So if we remember her body, it's coming around. Right here, you'll see a triangle. This is your opening, your suki for Irimi. You need a yin space that you can enter in. Okay, this is where I enter. You be over here, please. Okay. Sorry. What I don't want to do is accelerate her elbow. I'm not accelerating her elbow. I'm going to move into the Irimi space. So as she's about to go around, like use me for balance, okay? As she's about to go around, this is all light in here. This is where I step, and I put my body here. By doing the Ushiro Tenkan version, boom, this is where my body goes. So the reference point is an X. She's going to make a curve. I am rotating. The shape is spiraling, but in there is an Irimi. And the reference point is going to be like an X shape. So as she's coming around, I go this way, but she goes that way. This is different from a parallel shape. We're parallel to each other. Boom, and I go this way. She goes around me. So think X pattern. When you do the X pattern, the next shape I would like you to keep is that your back foot does not float, because now you're rotating with her and you're going to lose your throwing geometry. And again, that doesn't change whether you're here like this. So my back foot is going to remain still. Back foot remains still. Boom, pop. Still. I'm not accelerating them, so I don't need a little extra inertia forward. So on this one, I come this way, you have a lot of having to put weight on that front foot. It unweights the back foot and it starts to float on you. I'm not doing that. I'm going to make a triangle in the middle of her circle, and that creates a topsy-turvy effect in her body. So 1, 2. So 2 things on the foot shape, or the leg work, the footwork. There's an X pattern to your throw. She goes on the circle, Irimi goes across the circle. And then secondly, your back foot does not float, okay? We'll do. All right, so again, these are intro shapes. You want these shapes. You need to make problems of these shapes, keep those shapes, and not worry about what you do with them later. What you do with them is ultimately what all those podcasts are talking about. Okay? These are the shapes that generate the energy stimulations or requirements necessary for accessing the God mind. You're going to also do things with these as you progress mechanically in your Kihon Waza. So, for example, tasking yourself with the back foot being grounded is going to require you to shift your weight in a much different way than you would if you can float your back foot. But with your back foot grounded, then and only then can you start to gain access to the internal aspects, where you're more kokyu projecting them than you are accelerating them. There's no acceleration in Aikido Nage Waza. You're going to project that center against a tactical architecture that is deconstructing their base of support, which means that foot needs to be grounded, and I'm actually in Irimi going to attack the planted leg. And for me, that's not a beginner application of Kihon Waza, so that's why it's not in this video. But if you look on our YouTube channel, you'll see lots of techniques where we always attack the leg. And you truly then are doing a triangular displacement. That's truly Irimi. But you don't want that in the very beginning. Also, be careful when you do that version with your partners who have learned how to roll for acceleration throws. Once you actually deconstruct their base of support and project their center out of it, they're finally being thrown. They're not taking a roll. And so they don't know how to be thrown, and they don't know how to land from having been thrown, and they'll likely get hurt, and they will almost definitely think that you are an asshole, okay? But the shapes that I gave you today are something you're going to use all the time. The hand shape, the inward and outward spiral, the grid on understanding that spiral from the point of view of the elbow, and also the footwork on how to do it, the angle cancellation, the spiraling geometry, the triangle cutting through the center of the spiral, the zone of sanctuary, etc. Those things are going to be in every single Kihon Waza. And don't forget the little side note, as you're working these shapes, what you want to do is more and more and more release, especially muscle tension, even if it is euphemistically referred to as extension. Extension is not correct. you're still in tension, and intention is also not correct. This is not an imaginary thing, okay? So you don't want to use your mind to imagine these things. Use the reference points that I gave you on your body and the concepts that I gave you. You cannot imagine or intend your way to these shapes.